Traveling the Vortex.
We've joined the Doctor as he travels next to the Upside Down and arrive at episode number 345, where we've got more stories than you could possibly imagine. I'm Keith.
I'm Sean.
I'm Glenn.
I'm trying to figure out if I get it or not.
He doesn't get to go into the Upside Down. He's next to the Upside Down.
Did they ever call it the Upside Down?
Yeah.
No, but it pretty much was.
No. They used the term because I thought, wow, they coined that phrase before Stranger Things did. He called it the Upside Down.
I must have missed
the
that.
guy that has come through,
Yeah.
the what they call him, the first mate.
Yeah.
He actually calls it the Upside Down.
Okay, well, it works then.
How are you guys?
I approve of this open.
Good.
I'm Sean, and I approve of this open.
Did you guys have a good week?
Yes.
Not bad. I finished Peter Davison's book.
How was the rest of it?
It's good. It's really interesting. As I alluded to last week, there's not a lot of Doctor Who in it, but there is a section of Doctor Who.
Did the actor despair?
He does very often.
Got to
Very
say spoilers,
often.
Glenn.
And then he also talks about conventions, doing the convention circuit. So that's a chapter, or at least a part of a chapter in that book as well. So, or in the book as well. Yeah, it's good. It's everything I didn't know I knew about Peter Davison that I didn't know there was to know about Peter Davison. He leads a relatively interesting, mundane life. And by that I mean he has interesting things to say, but nothing. He doesn't have this. He's not a huge star.
Yeah.
But he's always been working, and he even talks about what he calls his wilderness years in the 1990s, where he wasn't on TV much anymore, and he was doing. He did the Arizona Solution with Sylvester McCoy and Colin Baker, and in fact, John Pertwee got involved because he heard those three guys were doing it. So. Anyway, he talks about those and how rough it was, and he talks about his 3 different marriages and, how Georgia comes along. And yeah, so like I say, it's an interesting read because he's never done anything spectacular, but he's always had this tremendous luck when it's come to his career. And every time that things seem to go down, something else comes along that kind of helps, and so it's quite interesting. And I other than the very few things I'd seen him in, such as All Creatures Great and Small and Hitchhiker's Guide and some of those things, and then of course Doctor Who, I knew nothing else about him. And I'm glad he came to this book from the point of view of, if I sit down and write a book about Doctor Who, I'm not going to be telling anything new to most fans of Doctor Who that already know more about my life than I do at this point in his life. And I appreciated that because there was a lot of stuff I learned about him that I had no idea. So it's quite interesting.
I finished A Brief History of Time Lords, which we've decided we're going to review.
That's how it is,
so.
But since we know we're going to be reviewing it, I don't think we should tip our hat. So.
Yeah, so I won't say much more than that, but you can go check out I gave it stars. I don't think I gave an actual review on Goodreads. So
We found out that we made the top 8, potentially, films in the short film contest.
Congratulations.
Thank you. Very excited by that. And
when's it going to be released online so those of us not in the circle can watch it?
The official judging is September 5th.
Okay. So
we have to go back to Kansas City one more time, which... I went down to the viewing, the viewings are always fun to get together and see the screening of all these short films. Had I known that wasn't the judging night, and it was just the
Probably
screening,
wouldn't have gone.
I wouldn't have gone. I'd have just waited. But what else we do? Finally picked up and rewatched Guardians 2 this week. It's so good.
As did I.
I did too. I finished The Defenders.
How was the rest of it?
It was so good. Oh my gosh, I loved it so much. And the small problem I have with it is a little bit at the end, but they kind of fix it. But I can't tell you what it is because it would drastically spoil it. So, but they sort of fix it, so it's not so bad. But yeah, quite enjoyable. It's action packed all the way to the end. I really appreciated that the chemistry between all the characters is fantastic. So
Nice.
We were continuing our Deep Space Nine rewatch and got up to the point where the uniforms changed. And I went, oh, it's time to watch First Contact. I forgot that happened. That's my cue. So we went and popped that in. And, I was just, okay, it's time for this. And we'll jump back over to this because we're kind of trying to do those part in sequence. And Mel sat there like just wide-eyed through and I kind of kept looking at her. I was like, have you not seen First Contact?
She's not seen First Contact?
Never seen it.
Really?
If she said, if I've seen it, I do not remember anything about it. She says, I don't think I've ever seen it.
That's my second favorite Trek film.
Yeah. I was like, oh, okay. And she goes, oh, I loved it. I was like, okay, good. That's the correct response.
Yeah. Wow. We finished Orphan Black. It was a satisfying conclusion that almost didn't feel like a conclusion. There's some of it that, while if it was definitely the end, it almost didn't feel climactic enough, or reached high enough to end. I don't know how to describe it. It was satisfying, but it didn't feel as satisfying as it could have been. Maybe that's it. We also watched Going in Style.
Wasn't that fun?
That was fun. I didn't know it was a remake.
Oh, I didn't know that either.
Yeah, George Burns film.
Really?
Yeah.
That's the only version I've seen. The George Burns version.
The new version's good. I really liked it. It was a lot of fun.
It's very cute.
Yeah.
It's just a fun little movie, and the chemistry between Michael Caine and Alan Arkin and Morgan Freeman is just to die for. They're very
absolutely.
very funny.
Yeah.
We did Flicks with Friends Xanadu this weekend.
I forgot all about it, Sean.
I wondered where you were at.
I even saw it on our the little thread you have on Facebook, the message, because I didn't realize I had accidentally muted that. And I was going through some stuff on Facebook, and I was like, oh, crud. And so I unmuted it. Well, and here's the thing is...
I'm sorry, I was ignoring you.
Well, it was, but it was unintentional. And but it wasn't even like I noticed today that it was muted. I noticed yesterday and went, oh, yeah, Xanadu. I'm going to do that tonight. And then tonight came, and I completely spaced it.
You missed out. As with every time when I watch Xanadu, I go, I really don't remember anything about this movie. Like I've seen Xanadu. I know I've seen Xanadu. And then I watch Xanadu, and I go... all I remember is the neon and Olivia Newton-John. That's about it. That's all that sticks with me, because there's this whole segment where they're at the office and he's yelling at the painters and I don't care. Hurry up and get back to there's the muses. Okay, cool. What is with the rollers? I don't remember the roller skating. So it's new to me every single time I watch this movie.
Really? Xanadu is one of those films I watch probably once a year at some point. Yeah.
I mean, I'm not. It's a bad movie. I'm just going to go.
It is a bad movie.
It's a bad movie.
I love
it.
It is the quintessential guilty pleasure for me.
Yeah.
It is the quintessential guilty pleasure film.
See, we could have used you on.
Oh, I really felt bad that I missed it. It wasn't until today that I remembered it. I was like, hey.
Well, you'll get to watch it once I get it edited. I've got Mel and Kara on the couch, and
is that all?
that's it.
Oh man, I wish.
James showed up
what
for
you
the
need to
watch-along.
do
He
is you
didn't
need
stick
to text me, because I'm terrible on those
Yeah,
social
that's
media
true.
feeds. If you get a text to me, I'll go, oh yeah, okay, I'm doing that. So,
Did you do anything else, Sean?
I don't think so. If I did, I don't remember it.
all right, should we move on to news?
Yeah, let's. Our first bit of news comes from our friends over at Candy Jar Books. They have announced a new book called The Lucy Wilson Mysteries Avatars of the Intelligence, written by Sue Hampton.
Yay!
Which, if you'll remember, when we reviewed Havoc Files 3, there's a short story in there called Lucy Wilson that sets up the relationship between her and her grandfather. That was also written by Sue Hampton, and so this will be the continuing adventures of Lucy Wilson and her friend Hobo.
Trying to find his name. Yeah, Hobo.
Which I think must be
friend,
short.
Hobo.
Yeah, new friend. Which I think must be short for like Hobarth or something. That it's. I just can't imagine somebody's name being Hobo. I think that's got to be short for something. But okay.
Hold the boat.
Not Hodor.
Hobo. Hold the boat.
Hobo. All he says is his name, Hobo. It looks like Lethbridge Stewart will be in it too.
Yeah.
Yeah. So.
And it's going to be an actual a series of novels aimed at the younger crowd.
It
So
sort of
it's kind
sounds
the
like
Sarah Jane Adventures of the Lethbridge Stewart line.
It sounds like Alfred Hitchcock Presents, and Alfred Hitchcock's and the Three Investigators that I used to read when I was a kid, And it was these three guys.
There's an Alfred Hitchcock children's line?
Yeah, it was called
Really?
Alfred Hitchcock and the Three Investigators. And basically, it was this group of kids that went around solving mysteries, and it was often set up with them visiting Alfred Hitchcock and him kind of helping them, guide them along in their mysteries. But it was a very small part about it. And I got the impression that this will be Lucy and her friend running around solving these mysteries and the help from Lethbridge Stewart will be kind of a bookending type thing where they get a little bit of advice from Grandpa, or he steers them in the right direction for something, which was very much in line with the Alfred Hitchcock and the Three Investigators.
I had no idea that was a thing.
Yeah.
In addition to, obviously, the Great Intelligence being involved, because of the title, the Brig will be in there, along with a couple other characters well known to the fans of the Lethbridge Stewart range of books and The Web of Fear.
Yeah.
So, not only Lethbridge Stewart, but other characters are going to be popping up.
Yay. And when do these come out?
Trying to find the release date.
I believe it's after the first of the year. And we'll actually be
You can
reviewing.
pre-order it.
We will be reviewing the book. We've got an advanced copy, so we're going to be reviewing the book here in a few weeks down the road.
Spoiler free.
Spoiler free.
Since it hasn't released yet, we're going to give you a sneak peek of it. I'm excited. I'm really kind of jazzed by this.
Yeah, me too. Another bit of news. Russell T. Davies got a special award.
He did. Russell T. Davies was given the Lifetime Achievement Award at the Edinburgh International Television Festival, and that's pretty much for his body of work. Everybody knows he's done Doctor Who, clearly, but he's also was the creator of Queer as Folk, Casanova, The Cucumber, which I've never heard of The Cucumber.
Huh.
And so he was awarded that.
And Torchwood and the Sarah Jane Adventures.
Aliens vs.
That's just it.
Wizards.
Yeah, he goes on to talk about how he's done things like being a children's presenter, and he's done a myriad of things in television, specifically on the BBC.
Queer as Folk was one.
I think during his
did.
speech, he did sort of defend the BBC and its kind of quasi-attack by the government that's trying to kind of wane itself off of it and shut it down. But
Is that still going on?
yeah, apparently so. I mean, I think the British government really feels like the BBC is just a hang on, and they're having to provide way too much money for something that they don't really need anymore. Since there's so much commercial television in the UK now, there's no need for a government channel. And then also just as an added at the festival, BBC One was named Channel of the Year. So apparently they are still needed.
Yeah, apparently. Our last bits of news comes from Big Finish. And speaking of Torchwood, Captain John Hartz is going to return in an upcoming story. The story called The Death of Captain Jack.
Is there a number or an asterisk in that title?
And featuring, of course, Captain John Hartz with James Marsters returning in the role.
Nice.
Which I don't know how else they could have done that. And then another bit of news. Big Finish has announced Tales from New Earth.
Is this the official?
What does that entail, Keith? Do we know?
Is it the official New Earth, New Earth?
It is the official New Earth, New Earth.
Is it New Earth?
It has cats on the cover. So
No,
I'm
it's
assuming.
New Earth, but it's New York
Oh, that's right. That's what it was.
on New Earth.
New York.
Because there was 13 news, 19.
I don't remember anymore.
There was a high number
Yeah.
of news, but we just abbreviated to New York.
Well, regardless. It's going to be a box set of 4.
None of these stories take place in New York, do they?
Well... yeah, there is. Because there's Escape from New York.
Oh, okay then. I feel
Death
just
from the New Forest,
Escape
Skies
from
of
New
New
York.
Earth, and the Cats of New Cairo. So just a variety of stories based off
Wait,
of...
does every city in New Earth start with new on it? Is that why?
Of course.
Is that why it's New Earth? New Cairo, New York, New London,
New York.
New
New
York.
York,
Two
yeah. New
City's
Mexico.
So popular, they named it twice.
So they are inspired by the 9th and 10th Doctor stories. So not only just New Earth is inspiring this. I'm trying to see...
Gridlock would have been the other one that was set in New York, right? On New Earth.
Right. Yes.
Is the face of Bo in one of these?
They don't say. Novice Haim is returning. The cat
lady, yeah.
What about Brannigan?
Does not say anything about Brannigan.
Oh, bummer. Actually, any of those characters in any of those cars
Pretty
that he
much,
skipped to would be a boon for me. I think I'd listen to it based on any of those.
Well, I'll listen to it anyway.
Especially the old lady, the old lesbian couple.
lady,
They
yeah.
were great.
They were
I
great.
loved them.
There's also Sapling Vale. So more of the tree people
Oh,
from End of the World.
Right.
Hence the Ninth Doctor connection.
Yeah. That would be the Ninth Doctor Christian because
cool. Right, but that was End of the World. That wasn't New York.
no, but they're saying that
They came
because
from
this
New Earth.
this species is in this series, that's the connection to the Ninth Doctor because the Ninth Doctor had nothing to do with
you're right.
New Earth
Yeah,
and
it
New
was-
York.
it was,
yes. Why do we keep saying New York? Just New Earth. I don't because it's fun to say New.
Because it's fun to say New York.
Yasmin Bannerman is returning to play a sapling of her character, Jabe.
Ah, neat.
That's a nifty way of doing that.
Yeah, pulling a Groot with it.
Right.
So that's pretty. That's a unique way to expand the New Who range that I didn't expect them to do.
I didn't see that coming. That's for certain.
And if Big Finish is going to do it well, so I mean,
I'm sure they asked the production team, is there anything you're not going to touch? Well, you can have that New Earth stuff.
now here's the danger, because now this box set sells well, and it's being Big Finish. It probably will. That means that we'll get, down
it's
the road.
going to be the new Jago Lightfoot.
We'll get a box set
There's
of...
going to be 15 of these box
well,
sets.
yeah, we'll just get a box set of what was that one planet in that one episode they went to. Okay, here's some numbers from there.
Oh, I'm waiting for the...
Tales of the Jaguarfest.
I'm waiting for the Raxacoricophallopatoris box set.
Oh, see, there you go.
You joke, but I mean, how great would a box set of... I just blanked on it. Never mind.
Rexicala.
No, there
No.
was
I just said it.
of
Raxacoricophallopatoris.
Akaton. How great would an Akaton
Oh,
box
yeah.
set be?
Akaton.
Oh, Akhenaten.
Rings.
Yeah,
Akhenaten,
from
yeah.
Ring.
So, for you, yes. Akhenaten.
If you want it to be that, yes.
Yeah.
You can't see. What's Akaton? You said Akaton, and my brain went to that Chuck Norris movie.
Wait, there's a...
That's Octagon, I think.
Octagon, yeah. Okay.
That's it for news.
Pardon us while we laugh at our own joke.
All right, Sean, so we move on to feedback here.
First up in feedback is Ben. Ben writes, feedback. Hey guys, it's been a while, so bear with me if you will. I've been meaning to write in for a while and just haven't found the time or the energy to get to it. That's okay, Ben. We didn't have the time or the energy to read it. The end. No, I'm kidding. I'll start with books. There's been a fair amount of reading since my last feedback, so in order, here's what I've pursued and what I thought of each one. The Long Way to a Small Angry Planet. Think Firefly meets Babylon 5 with this one. It's really good. I highly recommend it. I wish I could say that synopsis really intrigues me, but having only seen half of that, I was intrigued when I read it, but then I realized I can't be intrigued because I can only be half intrigued.
If you can compare anything to Firefly, it intrigues
Well, yeah,
me.
that's true. That's an automatic win there. Next up was The Runaway Bomb. This Lethbridge Stewart short fell flat for me. I just didn't connect with it at all in terms of interest. Well, that's unfortunate. I enjoyed that one. He followed that up with a couple of other Lethbridge Stewart shorts and Daughters of Earth, which we're going to hold on to those since we have those coming up as reviews on the podcast. So we will bookmark this and make a note to come back to him and give you Ben's thoughts on those. If you're really curious, you can go to his Goodreads page. I'm sure he's plugged it there. So skipping forward, I then returned to the world of Thera in the second installment of the Dark Crystal prequel books, Song of the Crystal. This one continues to world build wonderfully. I believe this is a trilogy, so the next story should leave us right near the beginning of the movie. By then, those who have read the series will have a much greater understanding of this world than we did when we had just the movie to go on. I'm really curious to know, maybe you know, Ben, maybe you guys have heard, because the Netflix series that's coming out is a prequel.
Yes.
For the Dark Crystal, and I'm wondering if it's based on these books, since the books are coming out first, or if it's done in some conjunction with it, or if it's going to be its own thing.
Yeah, that I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know either.
I'll be curious to see that. From there, it was off to Ready Player One, followed by Armada. Man, this Ernest Cline guy is off to an amazing start as an author. These two go right up there on my all-time favorite shelf. Ready Player One wove the 80s wonderfully into it. Never once did I think, boy, this guy's lazy. He's just throwing references galore in here to chew up pages and suck up to those of us who were there and love this stuff. Nope. He used all those references wonderfully in using a really well-done story. The same goes for Armada. No spoilers here, Sean, but the references continue, and once again, they don't feel derivative at all. Yay. Looking forward to reading Ready Player One now that Keith loaned it to me. Next up, burp. There's a lot of use.
That's what it says. Burp.
Yep, it's Curtis Armstrong's memoir. This was really quite well done, in my opinion. It was a quick
Oh,
read.
booger. Oh, okay. It took me a little while to figure out what it was. Okay, where's burp come from? It's Curtis Armstrong. Curtis Armstrong. Okay, oh yeah, booger from Revenge of the Nerds. Okay, I got it.
It was a quick read and really informative. Definitely spoke to me in many bits of the book. I next mowed through the novella Binti. This was really well done, and I encourage anyone to seek it out. It was written by, that's a...
That's a name.
Nindi Okafor.
Nindi
Okarafor.
Akahatten. Okarafor. Yeah, maybe. I'm butchering that. This name will begin to sound familiar. No, it won't. In coming days, as her story with Who Fears Death is being adapted for either a movie or TV show. I have yet to read it, but it's on my list. That brings me to my current read, The Fifth Season by N.K. Jemisin. This will also sound more and more familiar to folks. It is being adapted for TV, I believe. I've only started, but it's off to a good one. That's it for books. What have I watched? Well, let's start with Doctor Who, shall we? I signed up for BritBox. I got myself a new Apple TV. Sorry, guys, Amazon doesn't sell Apple products, so I had to go to the store on this one. My old Apple TV was one that didn't have the hard drive and came equipped with pre-programmed channels. The new one has the App Store and lets you download apps and games, one of which is BritBox. Thus far, I have watched the first 3 stories of the First Doctor, skipping, of course, Marco Polo. Wonderful story. I read the Target book. Now I can hear you already. Wait, a 43-year-old, quote, lifelong, end quote, Whovian had never seen these stories? It's true. I grew up with 4 and have pretty much holed up with his stories. I watched some 5, 6, and 7 as a kid, but I've stayed almost exclusively with 4. He's just my guy. The First Doctor stories thus far are pretty good, but I gotta admit certain character traits throw me a bit. That's really interesting, Ben. I had no idea that you hadn't experienced any of the First Doctor. So I'm glad you're sampling those. The joys of BritBox.
Yeah.
I finally got to see the Power Rangers movie. You may recall an earlier feedback in which I lamented the fact that the wife and I split the kids up one night to go to the movies.
Wait, let me see if I remember. He got to see Boss Baby.
I think that's right.
She got the kid who wanted to see Power Rangers. I got the one who wanted to see Boss Baby. Now, more than ever, I feel cheated. Power Rangers was really good. I was never a big fan of the show, but the movie was a lot of fun for me. That's more or less it for things I've been up to, with one exception. My lawnmower died. Thanks to the hours of operation along with my work schedule, I'm having a tough time finding it possible to go and look for a new one. Why does this concern you, you may ask? Well, beyond some sympathy, it means I've been comparison shopping on Amazon. I think I found what I want, and come Friday, using your site,
Ooh.
I plan to order a new mower.
Ooh.
I just don't see any other way to get it done, and at least it will benefit you guys.
Thanks, Ben.
Yeah.
That's incredibly nice, Ben. Thank you.
Yeah.
That's all I got, guys.
Instead of the 17 cents we normally get, we'll get $17.
Ooh.
I'm not just making that up. I don't know what the conversions are on.
Probably $1.70.
Yeah, probably.
We're not. Every little bit helps.
Yeah,
Ben.
every
We're not
little bit
complaining
helps.
at all.
We certainly like it.
That's all I got, guys. Thanks for bearing with me. Take care. Time Lord Ben. Whoops. I forgot to mention that I pre-ordered Red, White, and Who months ago. It was to be released yesterday, Monday the 21st, but due to a backup at the printers, it's been delayed about a week or so.
Aww.
They mentioned pre-orders will be shipped out in 2 waves beginning Friday the 25th, hopefully, and on Monday the 28th, hopefully. They've thrown in some bonus materials to pre-ordering folks via an email. Hopefully by the time this episode airs, the books will be on their way to their new homes. When I put in my pre-order, they were thinking it was to be about 600 or so pages. Last I heard, it was pushing around 800.
Wow.
Not too bad for the $50 price tag.
Yeah.
That's really it, I think. Thanks for your time and patience. Thank you, Ben.
Yeah,
Thanks,
thank you, Ben. And thanks for buying a lawnmower.
And if you too want to be like Ben, you're ordering something on Amazon, go to our site first.
You know what? In fact, Ben's setting the bar really high. I'd like to see somebody. I'm challenging anybody else to find a product more than a lawnmower. Go through our site, purchase it, and there's a challenge out there now. The gauntlet has been thrown down. Ben is the top of the.
Should we have a contest to go to the Traveling the Vortex prize vault for the most expensive Amazon purchase?
We're going to send you this book.
Congratulations! We're giving you a free comic book.
Oh wait, I think we got a bumper sticker there somewhere too. We'll throw that in on top.
We should have Traveling the Vortex bumper stickers. I put one on my car.
Yes, you would.
Note to self: look at printing some bumper stickers.
Up next is Chrissy.
I supported this podcast through Patreon, and all I got was this Lassie bumper sticker.
Chrissy writes, Dear Vortex, the subject header is Update from Baby Life. Dear Vortex Boys, just wanted to give a quick update. Obviously, I've been kind of busy, and as such, I fell behind listening to podcasts. But I have been catching up during late night feedings, meaning that, yes, you all have a new listener.
Hooray!
Yay! Not like he has much choice, but he seems to enjoy listening to you three talk. Who? Let me start that over. But he seems to enjoy listening to you three talk who. There we go. Start him young, right? Thanks for all the well wishes after Alex was born. Like I mentioned on Facebook, it was a pretty tough labor, and I'm still recovering on some levels. All I can say is thank goodness for modern medicine. Plus, Alex had to be monitored in the hospital longer than normal because his breathing was fast and his blood sugar was low when he was born. Evidently, that's a common thing with newborn babies who are over 10 pounds at birth. Alex was 10 pounds, 14 ounces. So yeah, we were in the hospital for a few days more than expected. It wasn't exactly the most fun I've had, but we're home now and doing a lot better, and he's the cutest thing ever, but I'm very biased. Smiley face.
We're glad you're all home and doing better.
Yes, absolutely. Also, Sean, I hope you're enjoying The Long Black. I do have it on good authority that the sequel is on its way and should be out within a couple of months.
Wait, sequel? Does that mean this isn't going to end? Am I going to get a cliffhanger? I didn't sign up for that. No, I am enjoying it so far, Chrissy.
And major props to pronouncing the last name right.
Which I couldn't do again if I tried. So.
Not everyone even makes an attempt to say... Oh, she wrote it in here, so I have to say it. An attempt at saying Andrew Weirden. Did I get it?
I think you did.
I'd have to go back and listen to what I said last week to let you know.
When they see it, so kudos to you for that. She had no idea I was going to read that. I bet she thought Sean was going to read it.
I don't appreciate your ruse.
Andrew Weirden.
Clever attempt to try and trip me up.
I did love your interview with Andy about the Lethbridge Stewart books. Listening to him talk about the process of making this series was an absolute treat, and I can't wait to read the rest of the books. Speaking of things I'm still behind on, anytime you want to get Andy on the podcast as your fourth Vortex boy is fine with me. That's all I really have to say this week, just that I'm listening and enjoying the podcast as ever. Hope you're all doing well, and I'll talk to you later. Chrissy and Alex. Actually, Andy, the plan is to have him back on the podcast again when we talk about the conclusion to The Lost Skin. So he will. That's not right away, but once we get Havoc Files 4 and we get back out.
It may be a longer wait.
Oh no!
Yeah, well, I posted my Goodreads review finally of Havoc Files 3, and my review blurb for The Lost Skin Part 2 was all capital letters. Andy, why you make me wait so long for Part 3? And he replied, well, now you may have to wait a little bit.
Oh no!
Way to go, Sean.
Well, anyway, we will.
FYI,
we will have our fourth Vortex boy on the podcast again soon.
Eventually. Well, let's move on to our reviews.
Let's do so.
Here, there be monsters. The distant future, the TARDIS with the Doctor, Susan, and Ian and Barbara aboard, is drawn out of the Vortex and lands aboard the Earth benchmarking vessel Nevermore, where Captain Rostrum is navigating by punching holes in the very fabric of space. The Doctor is appalled by this act of vandalism and fearful that it could unleash monsters from the dark dimensions. As the benchmarking holes begin to fray, the fate of the universe is at stake, and while the Doctor contemplates a terrible sacrifice, Susan befriends the Nevermore's first mate, someone she will remember for the rest of her life.
Bum, bum, bum.
I quite enjoyed this one.
I did too. I was struck initially with Susan's setup, where she's kind of explaining how she felt that grandfather was not seeing the universe so much as trying to protect her from it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And I thought to myself, isn't that odd? We've commented on that the Doctor changes his personality once she leaves. And, wow, this just kind of ties right in with that. Big Finish is listening to us.
Well, I think I think it goes a long way to explaining why. We've always talked about in the First Doctor, Susan, Ian, and Barbara era, it always seemed like they were quick to run away from danger.
Yes.
That they'd pop in, find out they were in a situation, and it always seemed to be the fastest and quickest way they could get out of there is what they were. That was always their goal. It was never to step in and help or figure out. I mean, they always end up doing that, but I think inadvertently. But it was always seemed like they were just ready to get out of there. If they could avoid it, they could. And I think this statement goes a long way to explain away why the Doctor was very much that way. Is he wanted to protect Susan rather, more important to protect Susan than to explore the universe or see the universe.
Oh, and as you say, Sean, why we see that shift once Vicky comes around.
Yep. Yeah. I just thought it was really interesting that apparently we're not the only ones to feel that way.
No.
Susan herself thinks that.
I do like that Susan's extrasensory perception or psychic ability that the Doctor said was probably amplified by the sense sphere.
The sense sphere?
Sense sphere? Is that what it's called? I can't remember for sure. Is actually alluded to here as well. And the fact that she...
What's the next one?
Oh, it was the next one. Yeah, I'm getting these mixed up. Yeah, never mind.
Save that comment.
I'll save that for later.
We'll get there.
I really like the idea of them, in this very first Doctor of this time with them, of them just kind of plopping somewhere and going out and exploring, and the fact that they show up on this ship and it's covered with vines. That's such a cool image to put in your head, and something so easy to wrap your brain around, too. Mm-hmm. And then the fact that it winds up being alive and talks to you, and done so well with such a... Even though it's only two actors in this entire audio, the production value around it, you hear the leaves so much, and they did enough effect on Carol Ann Ford's voice for Rostrum that it sounds like a completely different character. It works so well just on a production aspect.
Well, and Carol Ann Ford really just nails it. She's fantastic in this. And it's striking to me that for the number of years that have passed between her being Susan and now, that I still hear Susan. She just, we've commented on stuff like this before when you fall back into it.
And this is her first one.
Yeah.
This is her first return to the character since what? It would have been five Doctors?
Yep. Well, no, that's not true. She was in
I say have the Eighth
Dimensions
Doctor
in Time.
Well, yeah, that's right.
Oh, yeah.
These would have predated
These
the
would
Eighth
have predated
Doctor.
the Eighth Doctor one.
Yeah.
So yeah,
Adventures in Time would have been her last.
But still, that's many years prior to.
Yeah.
But she's really great, and the idea with the plants, I liked the idea that, as you said, it's a very First Doctor kind of visual, that they're there and the spaceship is just covered with these vines that then follow them, and they turn to watch them as they go, and then backtracking the routes to the control room or the bridge and finding that there's a plant in charge of the spaceship. Okay, that's cool. But going one step further with the science behind that.
Oh, yeah.
That humanity has genetically engineered these plants because they don't get bored. What is it? Wait, our goal is to reach for the sun, but we never get there. So we can pilot the ships and everything. And I just kind of went, oh, that is just a really cool, nutty idea. I really, really enjoyed that. Tickled me on my science funny bone quite. Just, yeah, okay, I'm behind that. That's just a really neat idea.
Well, and the fact that Earth is now so focused on on everything being poetic, and they don't care if the science is accurate. If it's poetic, that's all that matters.
Mm-hmm.
That's such a neat idea and I could totally see the future going that direction if something doesn't happen.
Yeah.
From today, I mean, it's not so ridiculous that it's not plausible.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. I think it also opens up an interesting something to think about is we've done stories with the Ood, who was a slave race, basically, that from what we knew was bred for servitude, and that was what it was at least conveyed to us as that was their nature and their need in life. And then we've talked about the robots in the second story from this season, which is the name escapes me really quick, but the ones that
Smile bots?
Yeah, the one with the emoji bots, and that talk about the slavery amongst those type. It's another step in another direction of can you breed in any way a slave race in order to be just subservient at all times to another particular race? And so it's almost like they take another step and go, okay, well, it's plants. I mean, plants, they have no feelings, they have no emotion. Does it? But
I wondered if they were going to go there, if they were going to start raising the ethical questions.
I sort of wondered if they would too. And I think it's interesting because once you give it a way to communicate, it does suddenly become self-aware.
Right.
And I was kind of, it opened the door for that ethical question, but didn't really ever go there. But I thought it was interesting, and it made me think that's another step at trying to find, is there a way that you can have a society where there is a servant class that it wouldn't matter, that it doesn't matter, whether it be computers, whether it be, another species of alien, or whether it be even plants. Does that even work? I had kind of hoped they were going to go there, but it did open up the door for the questions.
Well, it was kind of nice to have an alien, or not so much alien, but a servant like this that is truly loyal, like completely. He never budges from his stance of believing what he's doing is right and following through with it. And that's kind of a nice, refreshing aspect of it, as opposed to, it opens that question of the moral question, but then it balances it out with having the character not engage in the moral question. It's just, this is how he is, this is what he does, and that's all there is to it. To him, there isn't a moral question. But for us, there is.
Right.
It's a really neat way to do it.
Well, I think because it has a sense of purpose, and
right.
I think that's the most important thing to this. To what was his name? Rostrum. Yeah, that was that was what it was sole purpose. What it didn't question the morality of it. So,
which is nice because so many times you get those sort of stories where it opens that moral question, and then that's all you deal with. You don't do anything else.
Mm-hmm. And it would have been easy in a way to go there and have Ian or even Barbara would have been probably the appropriate one to complain about it and go, whoa, you're a slave, and then have the plant go, oh yeah, it's terrible, and so then you've kind of got that whole, okay, where are you going to go with that? Even
like the Ood wanted to do the servitude, but we still explored that moral issue with
right. But I agree with you that it was kind of nice to have just the plant was okay with it. The plant didn't see itself as a slave, and while the door was open, nobody really stepped through it because that wasn't the goal of the story.
Right.
And I liked the fact that we had really kind of a double whammy because there's no bad guy in this story.
If there is one, it is Rostrum.
Yeah, well, the plant is not...
There's an antagonist, but there's no bad guy.
Right,
The plant is set up initially that you maybe think it's the bad guy. And with the benchmarking and these holes being punched through the fabric of space, that that it was maybe intentional that they caught the TARDIS, and then you find out no, that's just This is an accident. This is just the way this works. And the plant's pretty chill about it. But no, that's my mission. I'm going to keep doing it. It's not malevolent. It's not evil. It's not, it's not a raving,
it's got a good
maniacal
purpose
madman.
behind the reason it's doing the benchmarking, too.
It's doing the benchmarking because humanity told me to. And that's the very simple thing. And then one of the punctures in the fabric opens this rift for the nightmares from the upside down. And it's like, oh, this is going to be the bad guy. And then we meet one of them, and it's kind of like, no, they're pretty cool.
Yeah, it's such an interesting idea to explore that everyone thinks that whatever's on the other side is are monsters, and while they may not be like us, that doesn't make them monsters.
Right.
I really like the fact that they explored that idea too.
It's sort of coming back to me, because I was arguing that they use the word upside down, but now I think about it, I think he says the underneath.
I think that's what it was
specifically, and that's what made me think of the upside down. Yeah,
it's the same idea.
It is the same idea and concept. What I really, really like about these Companion Chronicles, and this isn't my first one. Well, this wasn't your guys' first one either, because we did the Caroline Ford.
We did the Bluetooth with Caroline
John. Yeah. Caroline Ford. Yeah. Caroline John. Mixing names up here. But what I really, really like about them is they are simply what they're called. They're chronicles. And it's as though the companion years later is sitting down and recounting this story, whether they're writing it down, whether they're putting it in a journal, whether they're telling the story, they're chronicling these adventures that we didn't see on screen. And so I think that goes a long way to make them acceptable, that you're just hearing a lot of this from their voice, from their point of view. And it really forgives the fact that they're having to do the voices of the other characters in them, because again, it's just them writing. It's their thought or their telling of it to us, the listener, and to whoever else in story this happens to be. But they always do a neat thing where they take and they put somebody together. And in this case, she still hears the voice of the first mate. And I think they kind of leave it a little ambiguous as to whether she's actually hearing him in presence, or if she's recalling this, it's an image in her head. And they leave that a little ambiguous even at the end, I think, as to whether he's still there. But it does really good to set up the story and kind of give you a balance of two different voices within this, since they're restricted to having to do it in such a way. So
it also plays
really
off nicely with the whole, the title of this is Here There Be Monsters. And then the first line is, I'll never forget the sound of your voice. It haunts me, or however she phrases it. Mm-hmm. So you're automatically kind of on guard for this to be a monster, to be a bad guy, something that has haunted her, something that is still to this day is affecting her in a negative way. And when all is said and done, that his main goal was just to protect the fabric of time and space, because it was damaging their side of things, and that ultimately he does have to sacrifice himself to fix the problem, that's why she is still kind of haunted by him. It really turned it back around, just tied back in with I love the fact that there's no real villain in this piece.
Yeah,
that it's
agreed.
just, the plant is, because he's stubborn, but I can't villainize the plant. Rostam's not the bad guy. So I just really liked how this all came together. It was exceptionally well done that they set me up with a preconceived notion that this is where they were going to go with it, and it didn't go there. And I was really tickled and pleased with how that.
Well, I sort of get the impression that the first mate is almost the Doctor's parallel on the other side. In that he's the one that steps through to take care of the issue. He
talks about being a traveler and all sorts of different things.
In all of those different aspects, although physically they would be completely different. But I do think it was interesting that she felt that he looked familiar to her, and the reason being is because he used the imagery in her mind, which would have been of her grandfather, and so that's why he kind of, I don't get the impression they were like spitting image of each other, but at least there were features and personality and effects that made him be similar to the Doctor in many ways on this side as well, which I thought was kind of neat.
Which, in my head, it kind of became like a William Hartnell, Richard Herndon situation where the two of them standing next to each other, they would have looked similar, but just enough off.
Yeah.
Maybe a William Hartnell, David Bradley.
Maybe.
High marks. I like this
Very
one.
high.
I quite enjoyed that.
Well, let's move on to the transit of Venus. The year is 1770, and a daring explorer, Captain James Cook, and his crew on the Endeavour are navigating the Pacific Ocean. In their midst come strangers, the First Doctor and Ian Chesterton, who are believed to have come from Venus. But the TARDIS is lost to them, along with both Susan and Barbara, and Ian makes an enemy of the ship's chief scientist, Joseph Banks. Why is Banks acting strangely? Could it be that the travelers are not the only visitors from the stars?
Bum, bum, bum.
I like this one, but it took me a long time to get there.
I was concerned about it being a historical, and then we started to get elements of otherworldliness, and Ian suckered me in. I was right there.
I fully believe
Get
he was
him.
some alien.
He's
Yeah.
an alien. He's a time traveler. Maybe he's infected. Maybe he's got a parasite and he's been possessed by something. Yeah. No. None of that. Man.
What's great, what I really enjoyed about the story, in addition to William Russell's performance in it, is it's basically, you don't get many just Ian stories. And this is predominantly a just Ian story. The Doctor's there, of course, but he's kind of just in the background doing his own thing.
He spent the whole voyage reading maps.
Yeah, I mean, pretty much.
Checking navigation is like, okay.
But to have it just the guys and the girls off doing their own thing, and you don't really know what's happening with them until the very end, is kind of a refreshing approach to this era for the show.
Mm-hmm.
I think what I liked about the most is that they, as I say, it eventually gets there to where I like it, because as the story's going along, it's frustrating me because I'm in the same boat. I'm thinking, okay, I know that this is a historical based on the fact that he's traveling with Cook, and I know that Banks is the scientist on that, scientific advisor on that particular mission. I know that from history. I know that from reading that. And so I'm thinking in the same way. I'm thinking, well, Banks can't be malicious because you can't set a character that way that is historical that goes on to have advancements later on beyond this voyage as well. So my second thought is the same thing. There must be some sort of alien parasite or something's taking him over or something that they're going to consequently, explain this away. But as the Doctor continues to kind of poo-poo the idea that Ian keeps bringing to him about it, how would he know this? And the Doctor has all these rational explanations for it. I keep thinking, I realize that this is at a point in your relationship where you don't necessarily have very much trust for each other. This would only have been right after the Sensorites, as as we find out later, is that Susan's psychic ability obviously goes beyond the sense sphere in the Sensorites, which I thought was a neat callback to that, and kind of gives her a little bit more of that credibility of where I think the show wanted to go with that, but railed that back in stories that continued after the Sensorites.
Well, and the fact that this is literally on the heels of that story.
It is.
I
It's
mean,
right after it.
The reason why we wind up on this ship is the Doctor being mad at Ian and Barbara.
Ian and Barbara, and going to just leave them.
Yeah.
And, hey, this is Earth. This is good enough, no matter what time it is. But I like that. But anyway, we're going that direction, and I was getting mad at the Doctor because I knew that Ian. And then I kind of thought, well, maybe the writer is trying to get me to sucker me into believing that Ian is going mad or has something wrong with him, or maybe he has an illness. Maybe there's something wrong with him. Maybe he's not even here. Maybe it's the Barbara situation we had with the Coal Hill School Stories that we did in the short trips, that she's really having this fever-induced dream of what's going on, and it's really not. And I was thinking that maybe this is the case with Ian. And then it just kept going and trundling along, and I kept thinking, I'm so frustrated with where they're going with this, because you're frustrating me because the Doctor doesn't believe Ian. We've got this historical character that's acting, strangely. And then when we get to the aspect of finding out that it was actually Barbara and Susan specifically projecting the psychic communication indirectly, not knowing that she was doing it, when all of the pieces fall together in place there at the end, it made everything that I'd listened to just perfectly fine. I was like,
Yeah.
oh, that's absolutely the way this new. So I gave this one a really high marks for that, for leading me down that path of, I'm not sure I quite like this. I don't know where this is going. I'm feeling really uncomfortable to, aha, here's why you felt like that. I thought that was cleverly done.
It was very well done, and it was the first time the Doctor poo-poos his idea with, well, obviously, you put the idea in his head, and then he would go into this. It's kind of like, oh, self-fulfilling prophecy. Okay, yeah, I'll buy that one.
He sort of rationalized
He can
it with him
rationalize
early
that
on, yeah.
But the second time he comes to him and says, well, no, he just, it's like, how could he know about the prisoners? How could he know about the song? How could he know about... Well, because he's the one that recommends it. That doesn't explain the lyrics, that he can't know the song Botany Bay. Ian, tell him that he can't do this. And Ian just kind of goes, oh, all right. And walks out. I'm like, no! You missed the crux of the argument.
Well, I think I did like the fact that the Doctor starts to put forth the idea that, well, the reason he goes to the Crown and says we should set up the island as a criminal island, a criminal colony, is because Ian supplanted the idea, and I
told
thought,
him about it.
oh wow!
Yeah.
And so you kind of have to take the Doctor's side of, well, okay,
It's still
maybe
more of that
it's
self-fulfilling
still-
prophecy.
Yeah. But as it went on, this was another one that, as we got into it, there was a line early in the first one with Susan when they landed, and she looks back and Barbara's got her head resting on Ian's shoulder or something, and he holds her hand, and she says, I wanted to tell them to I wanted to tell them just to grab her and hold on to her tightly and all this kind of stuff. And I thought to myself, I'm not the only one that ships Ian and Barbara. That's kind of awesome. And then his comments in this one about,
he all admits what he feels about Barbara, though,
she's my
by the end.
navigator, and I feel lost without her and everything. It was just like, oh. So that was very satisfying.
Oh, yeah,
It's like Big Finish listens to me.
Well, I've always sort of felt that the reason why so many ship Barbara and Ian is because everybody collectively saw those things. Even if the
subtext is there.
Yeah, the subtext was there. Even if the show wasn't consciously doing that, the subtext was there enough that I think there's enough of a collective audience of Doctor Who fans that we all see that. We all saw that subtext, and that's why it comes into stories like this, into novels, into books, into things later down the line. Is we all have that same. We've all come to that same conclusion that Ian and Barbara were a thing. I mean, that's just simply what it is.
So that was very satisfying. But just as we went on and more things kind of dulled out with the story, it got just more and more satisfying that this is how it's all going to happen. Now, I do feel that because they throw the TARDIS overboard,
which had me hook, line, and sinker about what how are they going to get? See, how are they going to get back to that? What? I know they can't be stranded because logically, but emotionally, I was like, what? Wait.
It did make me. That was another thing that frustrated me. Was I thought sometimes I can work out. Well, okay, they could do this or could that one I was going. No, they're sailing off on a boat.
It's in the middle of the ocean
in a big wide blue ocean.
Well, and Ian's the very stalwart. Well, when we get where we're going, we'll build some equipment and we'll drag her up from. And it's like.
And what I thought was, how long is that's going to be? Well, it's going to be years till you could do something like that.
But I'm kind of like. Okay, Ian, let's I believe you can do it. Until the Doctor says, we're going to Australia. This is the mission. There's nothing there.
There's nothing there. Yeah.
Months and years are going to go by before you even get anywhere to do.
Let alone getting back to find it.
When they make so they throw the TARDIS overboard, and Susan, with her quick thinking, ropes the boat, and kind of the TARDIS just gets dragged through the ocean for months.
That's the one part of the story I had a little trouble swallowing.
Well,
okay, I'll allow it.
She does well. She talks about it righted itself, and it's not like they were like on a rope that was like 400 feet behind the boat being towed along, so that any movement seemed to be exaggerated. I got the impression that the TARDIS was right up near the hull of the boat, and they hooked immediately to it very close. Especially so that no one would be able to look over this. Because if you're hauling it too far away, Somebody was going to notice that in the 2
Yeah.
months that they had traveled. If it's right down,
Big square roof.
if it's right down by the hull of the boat, and maybe even on where the curve kind of comes, I could see it being there. So she also talks about once they got it hooked and got back inside the TARDIS righted itself.
Yeah.
So now all we're doing is we're going this way. And as long as they've got all the water cleaned out and everything, well, and of course until they hit the reef again. But
Yeah.
but once they get it right, I mean, there's the realism of it is just as though they were floating in space at that point.
Sure.
So
no,
the
just
TARDIS
idea
does that.
the
It
TARDIS
functions
was
that way.
hitching a ride on the boat, but not on the boat. It's kind of like...
Well, I sort of like that. I sort of like that
because it fixed the problem.
They,
So I'm like,
that was
okay
the
with
only way you could separate
Well,
the Doctor
yes.
and Ian from
And get them-
Barbara and Susan, and be able to plausibly have them that close to each other, but that far away at the same time.
And it needed to happen for the psychic abilities to work, because
Yes.
I would
Yeah.
not
They
have
would have to
believed that
be
her
near.
latent psychic ability was working from the bottom of the ocean
Yeah,
Oh, yeah,
no, agreed.
absolutely.
to
Yeah.
Australia. I wouldn't have bought that.
Although, once I was kind of like, all right, fine, hitched a ride on the boat. Then, so it hits the reef. So did I mishear it right? Is that the same coast as when they start going to ground?
That's the same place when they started going to ground.
Okay,
yes.
because for some reason when I listened to it, I thought it was like the other coast, and they had somehow got the Aboriginals to carry the TARDIS clear across Australia.
Oh
And I
no,
was
no,
like, how
it
is-
was.
How
was
is that? How
no,
did you get from there to there?
It
What?
was nearby. Yeah.
Okay,
no, yeah.
all right.
Nearby the same place. Yes.
Okay, then how they didn't see them, I don't know. But
Under cover
whatever.
of dark.
Well,
Picked up
I got the
TARDIS.
impression it was like 2 weeks until they got to ground,
well, here's the thing: is
or until they got on to shore.
I don't think it was 2 weeks, but
It was several days at least.
It was days because they had managed to get. What I got the impression was that the TARDIS got caught up in the coral reef
Stuck.
first, got stuck, and then broke free from the boat, and that's why they did manage to. Because then they said it topples again, it opens up, the water starts to come in again.
Yeah.
They do manage to get it ashore and meet with the Aborigines and move them, and they bring it on board, and then it's Cook's people that eventually meet up with those same Aborigines, but it wasn't that early coast that they had come across earlier around, which had been weeks before.
That's what
that.
I misunderstood.
So I got the
then.
impression that the TARDIS had broke free at some point, got stuck, but it wasn't. It was the same coral, but it wasn't the exact same event. It wasn't happening simultaneously.
All right.
Simultaneously to that. So.
See, this part wasn't clear enough for me.
Right. I love the idea that the doctor because Barbara so wanted Ian to be back, that's what caused Banks, because that was the one thing I couldn't get around and say, why would Banks maliciously push him into the water
Yeah.
and then fish him out to help him? Because I kept thinking there's something there. That's what kind of led me to the whole, well, it's delirium on his part. But to have that conveyance of Barbara wanted him back so bad that's what caused the psychic event for him to push him. But then realizing, oh, man overboard, and bring him back, not knowing that he had done the pushing in the first place. Because when Ian genuinely goes to him and says, I know you pushed me, and he says, what are you talking about? I didn't push you, I rescued you.
Yeah.
So it was
And
really well.
that was the moment where my thought process went from alien to possession. That he has to be possessed. That this is Banks. He's just got to be possessed in some way. That there's some sort of influence that's being exerted over him. I was still going with alien, but
Well, it was.
and it. Yeah, you're right. Technically, I was right. Just wasn't what I expected. Once again, and it's odd that we paired these two together just by crazy random happenstance or serendipity, as we like to call it around here.
Well, I don't know how much of that is because this is William Russell's first audio too, so there had to be something in the writing because it's in the same season.
But
No, William
the fact
had
that
done.
there's no villain.
William had done the.
This is another one with no bad guy.
This
I
is
think
his first
William-
companion chronicle.
Yes, you're right. I was going to say he had already done some Big Finish. Yeah. I think he'd done the Four Doctors and something else.
But just I don't think that we could have planned to pair two random companion chronicles up that wind up kind of complementing each other as well as these do. With the fact that
them being
there's
in
no
the,
bad guy.
being them in the same series. Well, no, that in that aspect,
In that,
yeah,
yeah,
you're right.
yeah.
You're right.
So just when you think you're ready to go, okay, alien possession. When do we get to? What's in the hold? Have you checked in the hold? Did you go? I mean, I was going through the whole. I've seen all the Tom Baker episodes. There's a thing in the hold. Ooh, maybe he's a Rutan.
There's a sentient plant in the hole.
He's a Zygon. Go look for the body print machine. No, it's just it's just Susan transmitting. Like, okay,
Well,
cool.
and it's another misleading title too, because the transit of Venus.
That's the biggest problem I have with this. Is it felt like the transit of Venus was a title that was given to her when she was writing this, and she said, "Okay, how do I make this work?" And then knowing ahead of time or researching that Cook had gone. That was one of the events that happened on his travels to Australia. Starting going, okay, I can formulate a story around that. But what was the point of them? I guess because they mysteriously show up, you had to have a reason for that. But carrying out that whole, they're from Venus, and Cook buying that. I mean, granted, I know this was the 16th century, 17th century?
16th century.
So it's the 16th century, and they maybe were a little more gullible, and they had just observed the transit of Venus. But to use that as a plot device that there are these traveling Venusians that have come to Earth, that to me was a stretch. That was the thing that I thought this element wasn't needed at all. There was no reason why they had to be believed to be Venusians, because other than mysteriously showing up, there was no other reason for them to be spacemen.
Yeah.
So,
in a way, you had to have them. They had to materialize out of thin air.
Which
because
I think they
if
did.
they had materialized in the hold, they'd have just been stowaways. So they
gotten killed.
And that would have been the end of it. So the fact that they just materialized out of thin air in front of everybody. Okay, now we need to have a logical explanation for that would be acceptable to that primitive state of mind. And saying, oh, we're travelers from Venus, and knowing that we just witnessed the celestial event is like, okay.
I suppose that's true.
It's thin. I'm not saying it's not. It's very thin, but it's more believable than we're magicians, jazz hands,
wizards or something.
If this was
because they're scientists.
If this was medieval times,
Viking country or something,
Vikings,
then I could have gone with that
would have
route.
worked. Yeah.
But with, as you just said, since this was a scientific expedition, that's a little more scientifically believable. That okay. Now, I didn't like Ian's excuse at the end for telling Banks, "Oh, I was experimenting on you."
Yeah.
Well,
you could have just apologized and walked off.
Yeah.
You could have said the transit affected you more than you thought.
Him being a Venusian from that standpoint and was experimenting on him, I thought works a lot better. So I suppose that element, although still thin, worked for me in that aspect.
So I have a small confession. All of the Third Doctor's references to Venusian and Keto, I always just thought, oh yeah, some alien planet. Never really thought.
I didn't realize it was Venus.
I didn't realize it was Venus. I don't think I had obviously heard the word Venusian before. I never connected it to Venus. So this was my first realization of, so now I want to see a story set on Venus.
If you're from Earth, you're an Earthling. If you're from Mars, you're a Martian. If you're from Venus, you're a Venusian.
I guess I'm so used to the idea of nobody being on Venus.
If you're
that
from
I never
Jupiter,
think of aliens.
If you're from Jupiter, you know what you are?
Jovian.
Jovian? Interesting.
Beyond that, I don't know what the other
Plutonian?
I suppose you would be Plutonian from Pluto.
I don't know what Saturn is.
I don't know what any of the other ones are. Mercurian. I don't think Mercurian is one.
Eurasian, I would think.
Eurasian. I bet you're right. Yeah, Eurasian.
Saturnian.
Saturnarian.
It's as good a word as any.
Yeah. I suppose at this point we start making them up.
So yeah, that's my confession. I had no idea.
Well, very good. Well, 2 very good stories this week, and I'm glad we all...
What are people from Saturn called? We'll see if Google knows.
I think there's literally already established scientific names
There
for
probably
them.
is.
Yeah. That's the only reason I know the ones I know.
Doing project. Saturnian.
Okay. All right. Well,
although words such as Martian and Venusian have absolutely nothing to do with describing Venusian atmosphere, Martian landscape, but it is Saturnian, Uranian, and Neptunian.
Neptunian.
So now you know. Those are the planetary objectives. but these are not the names for hypothetical life on these planets.
Right.
No.
According to Yahoo Answers. So,
Well, it's because we haven't had a chance to name them until we actually discover them, I suppose. All right.
And possibly ask them what their names are.
Yeah. What do you call yourselves?
that's something that has always bothered me about science fiction is we go, oh, you're Martians. And the Martians are going, no, we're terrestrials. You're the Earthlers. You know, or whatever they would come
I
up
liked
with.
so much about John Carter is the fact that they weren't Martians. They were Bosumians.
Yeah. All right, Keith, what do we got coming up on the schedule?
I wasn't ready for that. Hold on. I'm not used to doing the schedule.
I know, and I knew you wouldn't be ready.
Well, I can tell you our Friday Night Who selection for next week is the first 3 parts of Talons of Wen Chiang, starring Top Con guest Deep Roy.
You say starring.
Featuring.
Featuring maybe is better. I'm not even sure it's featuring.
Technically, the entire plot does revolve around the succubus.
Well, I suppose that's true, yeah.
He is, for limited screen time, the most important character in the whole thing.
The most important minor character ever in the story of Doctor
Who. But yeah, so we're going to be break that because that one's a long one. It's a 6-parter, so we're going to break it up over the next 2 weeks. So parts 1 through 3 this week for Friday Night Who. Parts 4 through 6 the following.
For the podcast next week, we are finishing off 4th Doctor Adventures Season 2 with Episode 6, The Dalek Contract, and Episode 7, The Final Phase. And the podcast after that, we will be discussing Top Con and A Brief History of Time Lords.
Yeah. And you can find all of that scheduling on our website, travelingthevortex.com. And while you're there, please consider becoming a patron of the website. And on the right-hand side of the page, you'll find a button that will take you to Patreon, in which you can donate to the podcast. And, of course, we've got links to other places. Amazon is one of those. A portion of those proceeds go into this podcast as well.
Go buy a lawnmower.
And then we also have a merchandise store on our website we'd like you to check out, too. And we have freshly minted buttons on there now, as Sean discovered. Actually, I've been on there for a while, but Sean just discovered them tonight.
I just discovered the buttons. I'm very excited. I may have to order some buttons because I think they're cool. As a certain other TV show will let you know, winter is coming. So maybe you need a snowblower.
Oh, yeah, there you go.
Yeah.
So, you know, that can be available. That too can be yours through Amazon.
Or a sword made of dragon glass.
Via us. We haven't even got to the pledge drive yet.
I think I'm coming up with some ideas.
All right,
Keith, how can people contact us?
Oh, while you're on the website shopping, just fill out the Send Us Feedback tab. Or you can reach out to us on any form of social media. We're out there pretty much everywhere.
Sean, anything else we need to touch on this week?
I don't think so.
All right, that's going to do it for this week. Until next week, I'm Glenn.
I'm Sean.
I'm Keith.
Cheers.
Good night, everybody.
Be seeing you.
Thanks for listening.
You have been listening to Traveling the Vortex. Doctor Who and all of its associated programs are owned and trademarked by the BBC. No infringement is intended or implied.